Active drag brake with the ISDT ESC70. What's that all about then? Shall we find out? Hey folks, welcome back to another video. Thanks for coming back. Today we're going to have a look at something I've looked at a couple of times before, which is the ISDT ESC70, 70 amp budget brushed ESC from a company called ISDT, unsurprisingly. A couple of videos which I will put on cards at the end or put in a little card up here, and they are going through the initial setup and thoughts about this ESC. I've been running it for a little while now and I really like it. It's really smooth, it's got lots of adjustability. The one thing I'm having trouble with at the moment, ironically, after somebody in the comments of one of my previous videos said they'd started to get problems with the button not working. It has a little electronic on-off switch, which is also the Bluetooth connection. They've been having some trouble with that not working, and all of a sudden I think mine is now cursed as well, because I said, oh, mine's been fine, but you know, I haven't really used it that much, etc. Now I've started to use it again. Mine has actually started to be a little bit unreliable in terms of being able to use the Bluetooth and connect to it. The ESC itself still works beautifully, so hopefully once it's all set up, that's fine. Don't really need it to work like that anymore anyway. But if I do want to make tweaks in the field, it's nice to know that it's going to work. So I am having that problem at the minute. Today I am not having that problem, so let's get the app open on the phone. The gatekeeper's already switched on and this has got that ESC in it. So we're going to see if we can figure out what the active drag brake is all about. Now it sounds fairly straightforward. It sounds like it's going to be an active drag brake, but what exactly does that mean? I don't really know. I don't know if that means it will adapt depending on how steep the terrain is, whether it just means that you can adjust it and it's adjustable, and once it's adjusted, that's it. It's not really all that active. Who knows? Or whether it is something a little bit more clever than that, that seems to be the motor trying to try harder to hold on to the wheels and stop the motor turn, you know, stop the weight of the car turning the wheel in a steep descent or in a steep ascent even. So we'll get connected up and we'll give it a try. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at, we've got to connect up to the ISDT app. So I've got that on my phone down here. Car is on. We're connected to the ESC from the app. So if we go into our settings menu, and then the first thing we need to check is the running mode. So we need to be in forward and reverse as the primary running mode, and that's important because that means the active drag brake level takes effect. So there's two options here, as you can see. There's active drag brake enable and disable, and there's active drag brake level. So if I have that disabled, because that setting only applies if you're in forward brake reverse. Don't know why, but apparently it does. So you need to be in the active drag brake level. Now if that is disabled, as that is now set, there's no active drag brake enabled, and that won't work because I'm in the connected mode. So we'll try that. There's no active drag brake. Can turn that reasonably easily, but you can still feel the drag brake. So there is a drag brake still there. Right? Doesn't mean there's none at all. So we'll go back into our settings, and then in terms of how to set it up at the right level, a lot of people, myself included, when they've tried this, have seen that crazy motor twitching and kind of maybe panicked a bit, thought it was faulty. I certainly did when I first saw it. I thought, what the heck's going on? So I just switched it off again, didn't use it again. But I've since learned that that's to do with the level of intensity that you've got that set at. So if we set that somewhere in the middle to start with, it goes from 0 to 20, probably lower than middle is probably safest. So let's I don't know, start at a quarter of the way up. So effectively 25% at level 5, and we'll set that. We'll come back out of the settings and we'll see how we go. Now if that's not right, it will start to do that flickering, fluttering. You could hear it a little bit there. There we go. So that's that motor fluttering. That essentially means that's on too strong. So what we can do now is step back a little bit from that. Let's go back to 3. And we'll try that. Okay, so no stuttering now. Seems to be about right. So we can just try and go up from there. Let's try 4, because you want it set as high as it can be, but without the fluttering. So if we'll try it at 4, see what happens. Come out of there. Okay, there's just a little bit of a fluttering going on still there, so we'll dial it back to 3 again. And that's it. And that's all you need to do to set it up. It's as simple as that. Now the interesting thing there is you can really kind of see it jumping on the stand when that brake's kicking in. So it is obviously quite strong, and it definitely feels stronger on the motor. And if you start to turn the wheel, which is what I'm trying to do, you can't see it because I'm doing it around the back, but if I start to try and turn the wheels, I can feel the motor trying to hold on to it. There we go. So that's really good. Now you probably can still put enough force on it and turn that motor. But in theory that's basically set the drag brake up stronger. So there's also another option here, which is braking force. So again, that's all about the amount of strength that the brakes are going to come on. I'm going to set mine to max. I've previously had it set to about 7, but I'm going to set it right the way up to max now. Just make sure that that doesn't cause any further problems with that fluttering. Oh, we've got to come back out of that bit. Kind of feels alright to me. And that's really strong now. Right, so in theory that's now all set up with that active drag brake on, as strong as I can get it to be without it fluttering and flickering. Now I assume that's going to be different per motor setup that you've got, and depending on the gearing of the truck and all sorts of different things, but predominantly down to the strength of the motor. So you are going to have to go through that little process of starting at a sensibly low level and just gradually increasing until you get those flutters, or in my case gradually decreasing until you get rid of those flutters, because I started off with them. But that's pretty much it. So we'll take it out onto some steep stuff and we'll give it a try. Okay, so here we are out at my usual testing spot. So I think these rocks are particularly good for testing drag brake and that sort of thing, because they're a nice sort of smooth and consistent descent or climb. So I really like testing stuff out here. So as you can see at this point, I am using a little bit of throttle just to keep things moving. But as soon as that front axle crosses over this lip, as soon as the tyres kind of go over the lip and into this steeper section, the throttle is off from that point, and everything else that you're seeing there is the drag brake controlling that descent. As you can see, there are a couple of occasions where I need to just give the steering a tweak just to get things moving again, because the brake has actually held it. And the descent angle has shallowed out a little bit, or its tyres have dropped into a little bit of a dip. But essentially it's a pretty smooth and controlled descent. Now I don't think it's particularly stronger specifically than the drag brake that was in there before, so I'm not really sure what the active drag brake is doing. It certainly didn't seem to be dramatically different, and it wasn't holding it rigid in place. Now I actually don't want it to hold it rigid in place. I quite like to use the drag brake just to give me a slow controlled descent. But certainly, as you can see here, when we start to go uphill again, it would be handy if it was holding in place at that point rather than just rolling back, as you can see. I probably won't bother switching it off though. I think I'll keep it in place. I don't think it's making it specifically any worse, and probably is making it slightly better. So there we have it. Hopefully that video was useful and you found it helpful. I think I will probably go and configure the Ecto to do the same thing here and see if that's any different, but I don't think it will be. If you did find the video useful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done already. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.